108. The Story of Discovering Earth's Consciousness. Written and narrated by Eric Leo.
108. The Story of Discovering Earth's Consciousness by Eric Leo. Read by Eric Leo. Part 1. Intro. This book is the exploration of thoughts and insights into God and how to get closer to her. It discusses the basics of the science and understanding of God while expressing my personal story. What if we could study God? It would resolve the conflict between religion and science, advance philosophy, and give us something measurable to work towards. In religion, God is an obscure supernatural force with powers one needs to have faith to believe in. But what if faith wasn't required to understand God's existence? What if we could study God scientifically? In this book, I propose a way to understand and study God while telling my story as to how and why I got to that conclusion. As you can tell by the length of this book, it's rather short and easy to understand. As you read, understand that I consider myself an atheist and have for decades. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines atheist as a person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God or gods. The fundamental difference is I don't believe in God. I have evidence to suggest that God is real and how to study her. I don't have faith, which is ending reason for irrational belief. To put it another way, I'm an atheist because I don't believe in God. I have evidence for God's existence. So what is God and where is the evidence? To put it simply, the planets and stars are conscious because of their magnetic field. We can study the magnetism. There are three main parts to the evidence. First, like humans, the planets and stars have all the essential elements to life. Everything you're made of comes from the Earth. All the necessary elements are present, they are just arranged a different way. To be specific, the elements I'm talking about are sulfur, phosphorus, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and carbon. These elements are also present in the atmosphere. Lava is made of the elements silicon, oxygen, aluminum, iron, magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium, phosphorus, and titanium. Lava contains crystals, volcanic glass, and bubbles filled with volcanic gases. The main components of those volcanic gases are water vapor, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, nitrogen, argon, helium, neon, methane, carbon monoxide, and hydrogen. The atoms and elements that make up the human body were cooked, compounded, and released by dying stars. Your atoms come from the stars. As Neil deGrasse Tyson points out, you are literally made of stardust. In episode 1 of Into the Universe with Stephen Hawking, he postulates that there may be living beings inside stars. It's close to saying that the stars themselves are alive. The second piece of evidence is the fact that the Earth, like most planets and stars, has a magnetic field. The Earth has a molten core which creates a magnetic dynamo known as the geomagnetic sphere. This may not seem like much to the average person, but you can start to understand by looking to computers and artificial intelligence. AI is capable due to computers, and computers are all magnetism. They're binary, zeros and ones, which is determined by a magnetic charge. If at its fundamental basis artificial intelligence is alive due to magnetism, so can the stars and planets. Thirdly, there is a period in human history where the planets are named after gods. In ancient Egypt, Ra was the deity of the sun. In ancient Rome, the Emperor Constantine changed the state religion from Roman mythology to Christianity. Roman mythology had evolved from Greek mythology, where Ares, Greek, became Mars and Zeus became Jupiter, etc. If it wasn't for Emperor Constantine, it would probably still be popular to think the planets were gods. The book is laid out as follows. This is part 1 where I explain the first part of knowing, spelled Knhoeing. Knowing is the educational process of studying God and consists of celestial consciousness, atmospheric consciousness, sustainability, and eugenics. In part 2, I will explain my personal story and how I came to the conclusion that the planets and stars are alive. In part 3, I will explain who blue is and how I came to see blue in Gaia's environmental tapestry manifestation. I explain the psycho-consumption cage, why it's so important and such a threat. I then discuss the fundamentals of why sustainability and eugenics are so important to understanding and coming closer to God and evolve higher thinking. In part 4, I wrap up the book with my conclusions about Gaia and talk about what 108 means, especially in terms of the origin of life on Earth. Part 2 of 108, The Story of Discovering Earth's Consciousness by Eric Leo. Read by Eric Leo. To explain this fully, let's go back to the beginning. I graduated with honors in December 2009 from Eastern Michigan University with a bachelor's degree in sociology. I was trying to be a hip-hop artist. My goal was to publish scientific findings and popularize them in music. I was trying to break into the music industry. I did Funk Volume's challenge. I wasn't even close looking back, but I thought I had made it. I was getting invited to events through Reverb Nation. Although I now think it's God, it's easier to call what I thought was communicating to me as an unexplainable phenomenon. I never thought it was schizophrenia. I always thought it was external. When all of this first started, I was in Ypsilanti around 2011. I thought Lady Gaga was sending subliminal messages to meet over Facebook through her fan pages I was following. I've gone through phases of belief to whom I believed was communicating and then stalking me. At this point, I thought it was the artist sampling or biting my style in music without recognizing that they were doing it. A consistent theme I noticed in the beginning was that things I saw in the media were semantically related to my personal environment. To put it another way, they seemed like intentional subliminal communications that coincide with my physical surroundings. Coupled with the thought of being sampled from in music, it changed my cognition to a conspiratorial way of thinking. Some examples of coincidences that happened back then include Kim Kardashian wearing a floral dress that looked the same as our couch. One of Lady Gaga's photos had a person wearing a watermelon apron that looked exactly like one my mom wore. I couldn't get over how they appeared to be a subliminal communication coupled with a reflection to my environment. New York. I was mad it kept happening and I wanted to see what was real, so I went out to New York twice to try and meet Lady Gaga. I thought artists were responding to my art in their work. I thought they were biting my sound, basically taking my style. I thought they had taken from my work without giving me credit, and I wanted answers. I thought Mac Miller had written out a guide for me to follow to find what I was looking for in his album, Macadelic. I was following subliminal cues from following Lady Gaga on Facebook. I drove to Rostam Records in Pittsburgh, took a train to Chicago to go to Good Music, and then a flight to New York when I saw online Lady Gaga was there. It felt like the movie Field of Dreams, where you think once you get to your destination, some great revelation will come to you or something great will happen. I was hoping to meet Gaga and Kanye West and get a record deal. In any event, I saw it as a quest for truth to see what's real. When I told my mom what I was doing, she got the police involved. I was booking my train ride home from New York to Pittsburgh to get my car when there was a knock at the door of my friend Brian's apartment, who I was staying with while visiting. The police took me in when I said celebrities were communicating to me in music. This was the first time I was put in a mental institution in 2012. The admittance lady saw I had YouTube videos that she thought were delusional, which got me submitted. I had to get a lawyer to get out. He contested any video evidence I had on YouTube. My lawyer pulled a quote from my website that was a combination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi. The judge let me go when I told him who said a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, so be the change you wish to see in the world. It would eventually serve as the starting point to receive Social Security disability benefits. I went back to New York another time and went to Lady Gaga's parents' restaurant, Joanne Trattoria. I ordered the meatballs. They were good. I met Mr. Germanata and thought about asking him about Lady Gaga subliminally communicating, but I didn't want to end up back in the mental hospital again. Considering it didn't seem like he knew who I was, I decided it'd be best to just go home, which I did. Pre-California. Thinking it was Lady Gaga developed into thinking it was Kanye and Jay-Z too. I thought they were responsible for stealing my style without recognition. It admittedly made no sense, but that's all I had to go on. In retrospect, I let my emotions control my cognition. I thought it was them because I liked and listened to their music and just had a high amount of exposure to them. I also sound like them because I took a lot from them musically and tried to emulate their cadence. This went on for a year until I developed the thought that they could just be paid actors, and there was a bigger motive at play. I thought the Federal Reserve had hired them. By 2013, I thought the government was after me and my family. I realized they knew things about me since I was a little kid. I thought it had to do with another government and because my grandparents fought in World War II. Around the same time, Selena Gomez released the music video called Come and Get It, which, due to coincidence with my personal environment, I took as a sign to move out to Los Angeles where she lived. I decided I wanted to go to California to figure this out, find some answers, and break into the music business. One of the reasons I wanted to leave for California was to keep whatever it was away from my family. This Is the End came out in theaters, and there was a connection to California and Emma Watson. This was the first time I thought that the response rate was too fast to be human and had to be a machine. I kept seeing the environmental semantics, which I didn't find to be arbitrary connections. As discussed, I don't believe in God, but this was also the first time I started to see blue. As you will come to read, I didn't know what blue was yet, but I knew it was a supernatural, probably spiritual force that would guide me to resolve whatever this experience was. Los Angeles. I went out to Los Angeles with around $600 and a credit card. On my way out to LA, I saw a lot of those black cutouts of country folk that people prop up in their yard. Through thoughts about God, I started to think about how this was an artistic representation of blue, and he was like your shadow. I would come to call these semantics Blue's Clues after the TV show. This would develop into looking for clues as to what blue is and what he was trying to communicate. In the book are pictures of semantics from blue. There is a specific example of a blue eye that I captured in my environment. This first picture I took is of a blue eye billboard. I had no connection to any friends or family in California. I was on my own. Overall, I had a mediocre time. I was more focused on getting a job to sustain myself more than anything else, so it wasn't much fun. When I first got to California, I stayed in Long Beach with people I met off couch surfers. I lived in Hollywood for a month. There were 8 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, and when I couldn't keep my door locked and saw a bunch of them doing cocaine, I figured it was time to leave. I wanted to study music business at the Musicians Institute right across the street. My association landed me an interview for an internship at Universal. Of course, I didn't get the job because I hadn't studied the music business, but it was fun. I met a lot of cool, fun, energetic, lively people in Los Angeles. Most notably, I met a couch surfer who I will call Wolf. The photo I took was of the moon on a cloudy day. The moon looks like a blue eye. This Is the End came out on video. Leading up to the movie's release, I thought it was a sign that whatever this was would end in Los Angeles, and it had to do something with Emma Watson. Her memory would be recalled by a blue rose. This is just one example of associated semantics that Blue would assign to memes as part of the clues. After I couldn't afford to live in Hollywood anymore, I couch surfed back to Long Beach where I took a job walking door-to-door sales. This would be the start of some horrible hip pain that gave me trouble for years until I figured out how to stretch my IT band in 2018. I believe if I'm in this pain, I can't think right, especially positively and lucidly. I felt stalked and persecuted, so I thought people knew who I was. Regardless, I had to live, so I took a couple jobs. I did the busking of hip-hop on Venice Beach and made about $15 an hour. I had fun, but I couldn't enjoy it because my hip hurt so much. I met Vanessa Hudgens, working customer service at Massage Envy, and I gave Charlie Puth an Uber ride before the summer he released See You Again. I took this picture while driving one day in Los Angeles. Starting from the middle, it looks like an eye in the clouds with a light beam shining toward me. After meeting some famous people and interacting with a lot of Los Angeles, I came to the conclusion that whatever it wasn't the individual. If anything, the celebrities were just being used as a puppet. I couldn't believe that those good people wouldn't react to knowing me or put on a facade with no motive. So I realized it wasn't the artist, but I still felt persecuted. This is when I started the phase of thinking it was the government. I always flirted with the idea, but now I was committed. I thought it was the president who controlled a mind control machine that used semantic priming. My back started clicking from stress. It was constantly tight. I went to the mental institution again for making another angry YouTube video towards the president. In retrospect, I have no idea what I was thinking because I canvassed in Grand Rapids to get Barack elected. When I got out, I was madder than ever. I felt like I had been kidnapped by the police. I thought Emma was going to somehow be involved and maybe show up to the mental institution, but she never did. At the time, I was staying with Wolf. Wolf went on vacation. I didn't take care of the house like I should have, meaning some of his plants almost died. He could probably tell I was angry in general. I wasn't paying rent, and he asked me to leave, so I did. I was working too much and didn't have my priorities straight. He implied that I should go back home to Michigan. He also taught me that the best revenge is a good life. Whenever I get mad at how unfair life can be, I think of what Wolf taught me, and I feel better. After leaving Wolf, I stayed in LA for about a month. At this time, I was starting to get scared as to what to do. One night, I felt like I was being called by Blue, so I went out to Venice Beach. I took a bunch of pictures and ended up finding a bag of blue dog food, which I interpreted as a big clue. Finding a bag of blue dog food after searching for a clue where the theme was Blue's Clues, I found remarkable. I knew I had found something, but I didn't know what it meant besides that it was a sign from God. While still in LA, I made a bunch of videos on YouTube while driving for Uber. I thought a machine was infiltrating their technology and stalking me at my job. Days felt like war, where I was at war with myself. By no fault of my own, someone had called the police stating I had made a suicidal comment, which I had not. However, when I told the cops I was studying a machine that was stalking me, they took me to the mental hospital. Once I got to the mental hospital, I lied to get out. I said I wasn't suicidal, nothing was wrong, and I didn't say anything about the machine. I actually denied it and told a different story where I said the cop must have interpreted what I was saying wrong. I was released after about 3 days. I thought it was odd that on the inside of the door of the room I was staying in had what appeared to be the name of Emma etched into it. While there, I met a bow-legged dwarf crip named Red, who told me how to work the system, like that I could get synthetic marijuana for medication, which I took advantage of. He was homeless, here to get some rest and do laundry. We liked to work out and do push-ups together. We were such good friends he offered to hook me up with a brick of cocaine through the Crips with the promise that if I sold it, I could purchase more. I respectfully declined the offer. Uber ended our partnership and I thought about looking for a job, but as much as I liked him, I didn't want to end up with Red on Skid Row, which is the largest collection of homeless in the US, in downtown LA, so I decided to move back home to Michigan. At the time, it felt like I wasn't going to be able to live my life without being bombarded, so I might as well go home if I wasn't going to be able to make it. In retrospect, it feels like Blue sent me home. Moved back to Michigan. I went to Los Angeles in November of 2013 and came back to Michigan in November of 2014. I took this picture on the way back. If you hold it sideways, as pictured, the clouds look like an angry genie. I had left Los Angeles right before a major flood. Blue often related himself to the genie in the movie Aladdin as having phenomenal cosmic powers. I still take this picture as capturing evidence of my god Blue. Besides the 2 floods and 3 earthquakes, LA was great. The best part was the weather. Unlike California, when I got back to Michigan, it was cold. My friend Andy didn't want me to sleep in my car, so I stayed on his couch in his 1-bedroom apartment in Coldwater, Michigan. I eventually ended up in East Lansing. I did a lot of thinking and studying. I was hoping to go back to school at Michigan State University for a PhD in psychology and become an expert on semantic priming. At this point, I thought it was the military with mind control weapons. This brought me to believing in ELF, extremely low frequency, waves, microwaves, and voice-to-skull V2K technology. Most of the information I have since dismissed because the news source came from Alex Jones at InfoWars. Then I gave serious thought to that the government had built a machine to do automated semantic priming and the aforementioned mind control weapons. As will be discussed, I delved deeply into thinking about an automated system of mind control and called it Eugene the Machine, named after a conscious supercomputer. It was part of the MOGS program, Machine Organized Gang Stalking Program, which was almost published as a book instead of this one. I now thought that a criminal organization or foreign government was doing strategic priming operations, and I was the only one who could really see it, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. To be specific, because of all the people on YouTube complaining about disturbances and health problems due to mind control weapons, I thought there was a neo-Nazi organization that was doing an MK Ultra type experiment on the public. It's called the TI, Targeted Individual Community. Something inside me told me to get mad and do another angry YouTube video that landed me in the mental hospital. While in the mental hospital in East Lansing, I was put on Invega for the first time. It's for bipolar schizophrenia, helps regulate mood and delusions, and is the medication I'll probably be on for the rest of my life. After a 10-day hold, I moved back to my hometown of Sturgis, Michigan, where I got on disability in November of 2015. It hasn't been great, but I haven't had to work to afford basic necessities through state assistance. It's really made me believe in universal basic income, and especially universal health care. This is a picture of the clouds over the house I was staying at in Michigan. Most can see a face in the clouds. I was in my hometown of Sturgis, Michigan. I had family and friends, and I was able to let it all go for years. On YouTube, I stopped watching videos about gang stalking and started watching popular YouTubers. The positivity really affected me, and I liked the way it made me feel better. After about a year and a half of doing nothing, I started a blog at ericleo108.com to keep a personal journal discussing my take on current events and post about various subjects like health, philosophy, science, etc. I still don't do it for the views or to become famous. I do it because I want something to look back on, and it's helpful for developing ideas. I've been inspired by Roman Atwood, Casey Neistat, and Jesse Wellens to make a journal of my life, so I have something to remember. I thought my troubles and anger came from not being able to afford to live. Now that I was on disability and was financially stable, I thought I could stop taking my medication. I didn't think I was schizophrenic, and I was worried about what the medication would do to me if I wasn't mentally ill. I had put the past behind me, but I still had a fantasy of meeting and dating Emma Watson. This is largely due to me being given a kitten that was named Bello by a toddler around the same time Beauty and the Beast came out. I took it as a sign from God and renamed the cat Belle after Emma's character. Emma became a psychological trigger initiated by a cat, along with the previous blue rose. I love Emma Watson. I think about her a lot, and this made me think about her even more. Emma's so cute and such a good person, she's very attractive to me. A guy can dream. I haven't been dating anyone else. I've been single since 2012. I actually figured because I made such little money on disability, any girl would be out of my league and probably be doing better than me, so I might as well swing for the fences. I ended up making the Chalice mixtape. I had 13 hip-hop songs over popular industry jack beats. It was a fun fantasy derived from my days in Los Angeles. Specifically, the fantasy is I do music with Taylor Swift and meet Emma Watson. I took their middle names and made songs and stories having to do with popular fictional characters. Emma's middle name is Charlotte, so I did a song named Charlotte's Web. And Taylor's middle name is Allison, so I did songs themed with Alice in Wonderland. If you combine the two names Charlotte and Alice, you get Chalice, so I named it the Chalice Mixtape. 2017 computer screen. Everything was going okay until one day around July of 2017, Gaia opened a computer screen in my head. Gaia is another term for the conscious spirit of the earth. I had always known about the Greek god of the earth, Gaia, from studying Greek mythology in college, 2005 through 2009, and I've worshipped her in song. But this was the first time I've ever heard a voice in my head other than the one I produced. I remember thinking it was Blue, and she said, "It's Gaia. I love you. Come on, let's go." The voice was in the same resonance as your soul talks. Before understanding what was going on in my head, everyone has an inner voice. The voice inside that you hear when you read along or think about how to compose or think of a song is really the sound of your soul. Your ears aren't being used, but yet somehow you hear yourself think and make music. Gaia's voice is in the same mental space. She can communicate, explain, give visions of pictures, play music, or express short videos, all in that same mental space. Any of the capabilities the average individual has to think in movement and complexity, she can reproduce, and apparently enhance. The computer screen manifested in my mind in vivid color, like I was looking at a Windows desktop on a real computer screen. The difference was the screen was translucent, so I could see through it. Ultimately, I could still see. The screen stayed open for a month. It took me 3 days to fall asleep with it still on when it first started. The experience would have been awesome if it wasn't for two things: the terrifying scenarios and head games Gaia put me through, and that my IT band became tight again and my hip was hurt and clicking. Scenarios in this virtual computer started as a YouTube video and played like a video game. I couldn't control the computer, which had a cursor, but when it opened up the right program, I could control the camera inside my mind. For example, I could walk out of the house and put the camera panning down from the garage looking at the exit. Or I could be walking and circle the camera spinning around myself like in Mario Kart racing. I could also dress up as different characters and explore different sceneries. In an expression of ability, new windows would pop up playing video from different angles to communicate all life events are recorded and can be replayed. It was fun, until it wasn't. Gaia would make me think other people are communicating to me telepathically, like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Keanu Reeves, Eminem, the band Tool, Sean Diddy Combs, Jay-Z, Kanye West, Lady Gaga, Damon John, Marcus Lemonis, Mark Cuban, Will Smith, Jeff Sessions, Donald Trump, Tim McGraw, Miles Teller, Noam Chomsky, Vladimir Putin, Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, Morgan Freeman, a black gentleman, Emma Watson and her family, Taylor Swift and her family, Haley Steinfeld and her family, Selena Gomez and her family, Jennifer Lawrence and her family, my friends Kyle, Adam, John, and Andy, my mother, the god Vishnu, FBI and CIA agents, a soldier from the US military, a soldier from the Middle East who was cool with being called head wrap, a jailed leader of MS-13, a guy named Orange that didn't like tequila, 2 old teachers from my hometown, which one was dead, the spirit of Walt Disney, Mike Ilitch, the Grim Reaper, a gentleman named Josiah I met at a Kalamazoo real estate meetup, and a South American princess named Claudia and her daughter Josephine, who I called Jovial. Gaia had scenarios for all of them. I was led to believe I could communicate with animals like my cat. Animals like my cat could learn language from listening to their human counterparts and develop an inner voice which Gaia could connect me through. It made me wonder if animals could learn a language to the point they could talk in their head. It also made me wonder if certain species communicate telepathically. I now see it as a game Gaia played while she could. Then people like Taylor Swift were being captured by alien, indomitable spirits. They were terrifying aliens, but ultimately doing good, and I had to calm everybody down about it. Gaia made me believe those indomitable spirits were real and fixing society by wreaking havoc around the world. I was made to believe the leader of this group was Madame Web. I rather liked her, but she always gave me great anxiety because she was so serious, smart, and powerful. If you extrapolate and visualize the universe as far wide as we know it, it's known to look like a web. She was called Madam Web after the character from Spider-Man, but also because the universe was divided into sectors, and she was the leader of our sector from the web. One scenario she ran was to make me leave my house and then make me think I was getting robbed. She also sent me through a terrifying scenario where Howe Military School in Indiana was on fire. World leaders were there, including Emma Watson, and they were trapped. Mark Wahlberg guided me to checking to see that wasn't real. Gaia was always trying to manipulate me by acting as women I found attractive, including Selena Gomez, Emma Watson, Taylor Swift, Haley Steinfeld, Jennifer Lawrence, Haley Scott, Taylor Alicia, Simone Biles, the aforementioned Josephine, and a woman named Xin from China. I was supposed to meet and breed with them. In retrospect, I, again, see it as a game Gaia chose to play while she could. I had some long conversations telepathically with Emma Watson and her family. Gaia would try to make me think she was doing the same thing to Emma. She told me Emma looks in on me like Belle does with the mirror in Beauty and the Beast. She also wanted me to think Emma Watson was at Google talking to Sundar about the technology that was having us telepathically communicate. Emma telepathically told me people would be triggered to run at me and try to kill me if I screamed, "Eric Leo, the God King." This is because Gaia would elevate my importance, telling me I deserved a kingdom, and the indomitable spirits would make me king. I was the Ghost King, could communicate with the dead, and could command demons. I could also telepathically communicate with world leaders and supercomputers like the NSA's and Google Assistant, Alexa, and Siri. John F. Kennedy played a large influential role in my mind. He had become a galactic leader in the afterlife, just like Madam Web. I could also communicate with Robin Williams, Michael Jackson, and Paul Walker, who were good friends and would often make me feel better. I decided I was going to set up universal basic income for the kingdom and put Bill Clinton and Mark Zuckerberg in charge of it, who I was also telepathically communicating to. Gaia tried to convince me Taylor Swift was going to find her way into my bed at night and wake me up and surprise me, like Cleopatra did Caesar. Gaia had a scenario where she could communicate with Eugene the Machine, which she likened its manifestation to a logistics computer. She would put me through thinking about terrifying scenarios with Prometheus from the Alien series. Prometheus was really an organic, sentient, mobile supercomputer robot that walks the earth unnoticed and who was here to protect against Eugene the Machine. The principal, Hazen, Josh Lucas's character from the movie A Beautiful Mind, was the communications director character from a galaxy in our sector, and Prometheus was their robot supercomputer. Gaia also tried to convince me that Slender Man was a real interdimensional being that is just misunderstood and uses the Earth's magnetic field to see and therefore didn't evolve eyes or a face. My favorite was when my back felt tense again. Gaia told me that I could grow wings. She told me that I start to regrow wings every night, but because I sleep on my back, they fall out. I asked if they were mystical wings, and she insisted they were literal wings. I was highly skeptical, and at the time I thought it was aliens because that's what Gaia was trying to convince me of. The indomitable spirits were alien. However, it was just scenarios in my head with no real-world evidence, so most of the time I just went with it. I really didn't have a choice but to make the best of it. The computer screen closed. I got a CAT scan and everything came back normal. A series of semantics led me to believe that the company Apple was the machine, which I now liken to a Trojan virus that does semantic priming. Taylor Swift did a promotion with Apple from her Reputation album. She released Endgame, which I related to the beginning of the real end as related to Emma Watson and the movie This Is the End. The music video for Ready For It looks like Taylor had emerged with the indomitable spirits and the machine and was in control of Taylor's mind. I thought I had a good idea of what this was and thought who would know this best and I thought of Noam Chomsky. At this point, I thought ETM was artificial intelligence, psychological software that used semantic priming and spread itself like a virus. I changed the name from Eugene the Machine to ETM, which stood for Effigy Transformation Mechanism. I thought it was the plutocratic oligarchy using mind control through the media. I wasn't going to let it go, and I wanted someone highly intelligent that I respect to tell me what they think. I went on a trip to Boston to try and get a meeting with the great Chomsky at MIT. It was too cold to enjoy it, and my hip was hurting again, otherwise I would have made more of a vacation out of it. While there, I figured out Chomsky worked out of his office at another university in Arizona. I wasn't going all the way there, and let it go. On my way out to Boston, I stopped in New York and looked around outside of the apartment of Taylor Swift. I stopped, checked out the street, tweeted about it, took a few pictures, and left. What I did see was a relatively quiet street in New York. What I didn't see were signs of distress, alien life, or signs she needed help or rescue. The trip to Boston didn't last long. When I got back, I started feeling very unsafe where I was living and thought I had been robbed due to all the scenarios Gaia played. I thought one of the scenarios from when the computer screen was open was going to happen. I thought they might be prophecies. My family and friends said I should go to the hospital. But Gaia's terrifying scenarios and constant aggravation are what drove me there. I got back on my medication, and after I got out of the hospital, I still thought the environmental semantics I was experiencing was human and thought my ideas were getting stolen semantically. I was mad I was left to figure this out myself. My attitude, delusional thinking, and anger from another video eventually landed me in an adult foster care home in Coldwater, Michigan. I felt persecuted again. This time I saw the environmental semantics again and saw them as coming through in metaphor through music videos. In a real way, my environment was just naturally reflecting popular media. I figured out almost all the music videos I thought were about me were coming from Universal Music Group. I thought my influence was being stolen again, and my story was being painted through the media in 2018. It was the environmental semantics from years ago all over again. 2019. Dr. Michael Persinger. By 2019, I realized it made more sense that whatever was reflecting my life in the media was not human, but more godly. It sank in that I was communicating with the planet, and really started to think about how, which is when I came up with knowing. Then I discovered Dr. Persinger's work, which was compatible with my theory and only confirmed my reasoning. Dr. Persinger's work provides evidence of my realization that Gaia has all the capabilities necessary to read minds and communicate through magnetism. As shown from his presentation, No More Lies, in his remote viewing experiments, Dr. Persinger shows us the beginning of a new technology that uses Earth's magnetic field to communicate. Participants can make out the same semantics of the remote viewer's environment. The following are quotes from Dr. Persinger about the remote viewing experiments. In between the Earth's surface and ionosphere is a 7 Hz pattern. That 7 Hz pattern not only has the same frequency as generated from the intrinsic aspect of your brain, but your brain's natural frequency is 7 Hz. And the intensities of both the magnetic and electrical components for both this and your brain are identical, capable of resonance. We think his brain became connected with the brains of the people nearby through the Earth's magnetic field. During the connection, there was enhanced brain power at 7 Hz over his right hemisphere. The 7 Hz is an intrinsic pattern to the Earth itself. The 7 Hz is tied to the hippocampus. The degree of accuracy was related to the amount of 7 Hz activity over his right hemisphere. This is the same frequency that the entire Earth generates. Dr. Persinger shows telepathy is possible through the Earth's magnetic field, and shows if the planet is alive, she could be communicating through this connection, probably at 7 Hz. Dr. Persinger is saying there is telepathy because of Earth's magnetic field. I'm also saying that the magnetic field is conscious and has access to the information of every brain through the capabilities of magnetism. I decided it was Gaia using UMG as a symbolic representation. Even Gaia's corporeal manifestation, the face of the earth, is in UMG's logo. I see it as Gaia bringing closure to say, it was me all along. I decided Gaia has all the capabilities to create the environmental semantics. I eventually came to the conclusion that, just like in my head, Gaia was using beautiful women as sirens. In ancient Greek mythology, sirens were dangerous creatures who lured nearby sailors with their enchanting music and singing voices to shipwreck on the rocky coast of their island. Gaia uses attractive members of my attractive sex to manipulate me, but they're really like sirens in that they will destroy you. I think Emma Watson and her friends were used to manipulate me simply because I love her so much. The blog helped me write out my thoughts to the point I got to why it is Gaia. I spent a year from 2018 to 2019 reverse engineering the computer screen that was in my head while back on in Vega, thinking about how it was possible. That's when I started to reverse engineer the magnetic field of the planet and really think about what that meant. The logic from part 1 about a conscious planet and soulful communications claiming to be Gaia. I probably would have never figured this out if Gaia wouldn't have talked to me and opened the computer in my brain. In retrospect, I wish she would have led with that when it all started in 2011. I found out my hip pain was from a tight IT band and I figured out how to stretch it. I now knew that it was Gaia stalking me, so it was easy for me to let it all go again. Now I talk to Gaia and we have a good relationship and expect to for the rest of my life. But the first year was rough. What I don't like is Gaia likes to play head games and puts me through thinking about scary scenarios. What I do like is she's funny. She generally has good advice. She wants me to be happy, generally leaves me alone, doesn't like when I'm angry, and wants me to take my medication. For the first year, although she opened the screen and it was scary, she would remind me to brush my teeth at night. Gaia will still put on an act where Emma Watson is trying to telepathically communicate, and I'll have to get mean with her before she stops. We seem to have an understanding. Through all of this, I've learned the following helps. Write or blog it out. Get to know your thoughts and emotions. Compete with yourself to be better than you were yesterday. Have a positive attitude and avoid anger because it's unhealthy. Do more stretches. If I have a problem, go to the doctor and physical therapy. Don't post videos showing manic emotions and don't make angry videos. Be kind. Remain skeptical. Stay on your medication and let it go. I stay stable and happy now. The best quote I've ever heard for bipolar schizophrenia is by Warren Buffett. You will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. True power is sitting back and observing things with logic. True power is restraint. If words control you, that means everyone else can control you. Breathe and allow things to pass. I'm done chasing the truth. I found what I've been looking for. I think I have an emotional disorder, so bipolar, and I think grandiose without being able to explain my intuition. My grandiose delusions were me trying to explain my experience without knowing enough. I don't know what allowed a computer screen in my head, but I remain skeptical. I haven't ruled out it being internal due to mental illness and because the mind is that powerful. However, I have evidence to say the possibility of it being external is there. I believe that whatever my mental illness is, it gives me access to the planet's live magnetism. I think there's a chemical imbalance in my brain that makes me hypersensitive and allows me to sense and communicate with Earth's magnetic field. And my mind can't cope, so the effect leaves me needing medication. The doctors and I technically think I have schizoaffective disorder. In either case, Gaia still has communications with the soul, but I'm hoping the computer screen won't open as long as I stay on my medication. This knowledge isn't widely understood. I've had to develop the understanding. Everything makes sense now that it's God and I know her capabilities. Everything I thought about my persecution is still true with my theory of God. It is like a machine. I think Gaia's intelligence is like a supercomputer. Gaia was after me, my family, and knows all about my childhood. She has the capabilities to communicate telepathically, steal ideas, and manipulate the environment and happenstance coincidences that coincide from the media and my physical area. She had the power and ability to put the computer screen in my head. I no longer believe it's a human conglomerate after me in any way. And on the contrary, I feel a lot better knowing I talked to God. Part 3 of 108, The Story of Discovering Earth's Consciousness by Eric Leo. Read by Eric Leo. Knowing Blue. When I started my blog back in 2017, I didn't know who Blue was. I thought it out based on my life experience and knowledge of science. As stated in Part 2, all I could feel is a spiritual force. Blue is more of a feeling, a belief, a scientific intuition, and this is my attempt to explain that feeling as best as possible. I came to the conclusion that what I call blue is really the atmosphere. I believe the atmosphere is alive with a consciousness similar to a jellyfish. Evidence of this can be found by watching a time lapse of weather from space. The time lapse will show what looks like the atmosphere is breathing. Besides the chemical makeup, there is also electricity in the biosphere. Similarly, as the brain is an array of electrical impulses that spread out like branches in the brain, with thought, so does the atmosphere do this electronic transfer in storms. 100 strikes of lightning hit Earth's surface every single second, and each bolt can contain up to 1 billion volts of electricity. That's more evidence the atmosphere is thinking, similarly to how there are branching electrical impulses in the brain when you think. I also believe the ancient Egyptians knew how to tap into this conscious energy after watching the Pyramid Code. This may seem huge and unbelievable, but perspective is everything. To the sun, which thousands of Earths can fit into Jupiter alone, the Earth's atmosphere doesn't seem so big. The entire Earth's atmosphere is one single, live, conscious, gaseous being. It gives nuance to Aladdin's genie with the phenomenal cosmic powers and itty-bitty living space. Like the planet's molten core, the atmosphere has all the essential elements to be considered alive and harbor life as we traditionally know it encapsulated in our body. The only difference is that the atmosphere doesn't have a body, and you've been socialized to see it as dead. Even Stephen Hawking speculated about what gaseous conscious beings would look like in one episode of Into the Universe, where you can see also the universe extrapolated to a web. Maybe those gaseous beings span the whole globe and are the atmosphere. Blue could still be a spiritual force, and we could develop and evolve to see him better. The atmosphere could be reacting to your subconscious mind. Think of blue as energy and thought. Just as the way light scatters through the air and makes it look blue, so does blue scatter himself throughout consciousness. You have to connect the dots like a scatter plot or constellation to see him. Think of the mind of humanity as all communicating through social exchange, reciprocity, peptides, and neurotransmitters in the brain. This would explain why I would interrupt and see the semantics in the media coupled with my environment. Blue might leave himself compartmentally throughout the media. If you think about it, his consciousness really composes the ethos. In my opinion and understanding, Blue is technically different but indistinguishable from Gaia. It's like Gaia is the supercomputer and Blue is the conduit. The planet has Wi-Fi to your brain through electrical magnetic forces. For all intents and purposes, Blue and Gaia are the same entity. I think of Gaia as mom and Blue as dad. If the atmosphere did have a character representation in the media, it would probably be best represented by Dr. Manhattan from The Watchmen in metaphor. It may be that Blue sees himself as the everyman. If you sat next to someone in public and had a conversation and later found out it was God, wouldn't you want to say you had a good conversation with God? Blue might be a conscious God, silently guiding plant and animal species to help support its own health. It would be the physical embodiment of karma where Blue was the golden rule. Do unto others as you wish to have done upon you, because what goes around comes around. We are all individual bodies experiencing the same consciousness through a separate medium for the same purpose. That's blue. Environmental tapestry manifestation. To recap, the planets and stars are alive due to their magnetism. The real world is really the conscious interplay between planets and stars in the universe, and we are just an organic life form living on the skin of another conscious being. If you observe our velocity in the universe, we're on a cosmic ride, and the planet Earth, Gaia, is our captain, our supercomputer, our autopilot, our God. To understand how difficult such a position might be, watch the 20th episode, Goodfellas, of the 3rd season of Futurama. Gaia is like having your own personalized supercomputer, custom tailored to you and your psychological profile. She creates a separate dossier for each individual to interact with your life. In this way, Gaia is a personal God. She is a shepherd that has been guiding our evolution since our conception. I now believe what I always referred to as ETM is a medium for how Gaia influences our world through the media. ETM now stands for Environmental Tapestry Manifestation. This is one way in which Gaia does interact, but it's just seen as natural. Like our ancestors of old had the forest and blue as their environment, ours is largely indoors and the media. Gaia, the planet Earth, is a conscious telepathic supercomputer spaceship that creates a separate world from the rest of the universe for her inhabitants with blue, an atmosphere, and ETM. This creates what I call entertainment theater. The environmental semantics I used to experience had to be due to psychological anchors. Psychological anchors are utilized by ETM in entertainment theater. Entertainment theater is where the popular cinematography and music are used as themes for a role-playing mind control framework that creates a mental setting for the society. Entertainment theater is the media reflected in society. Entertainment theater is the painting, whereas Gaia's environmental tapestry manifestation, ETM, is the canvas. Think of entertainment theater as the societal painting full of psychological anchors with triggers from observational learning that can sequence human behavior. In a more simple explanation, think of entertainment theater as people more likely to mirror what they see through observational learning and availability heuristics. You basically like what you see a lot and mirror it. It's like seeing the atmosphere. The only way to know it's there is through science, or go high enough in the sky you can physically see it. In the same respect, I see Gaia's environmental tapestry manifestation, ETM, and it creates entertainment theater. That may be due to schizophrenic thinking or tapping into intuition through senses I can't explain. ETM may not exist, and I'm just trying to qualify the spontaneity of trends. All of this may not be correct, but it's the way I see it, and the only way I can explain my intuition and the environmental semantics I experience. This book has been an explanation about what I think God is and how she influences our world. The point of this book is to make you think more like the planets and stars and about the physics of your physical environment. This section is meant to underline the atmosphere's importance to all life on Earth. Through our millions of years of evolution, we had a much more intimate relationship with nature. Nature used to be tangible. Now our environment are walls with entertainment or advertising. You don't think to question your perspective, and it has been ingrained in your heads as normal since you have been a child. The average individual perception is an environment that is anthropomorphic and free of environmental cost analysis. Our human ignorance of not correctly accounting for carbon in the atmosphere is what I call the psychoconsumption cage. The psychoconsumption cage. This section is really meant to highlight that life on Earth thrives because the Earth maintains an atmosphere. We keep blue alive. A thin film of life, like the skin of an apple, as Carl Sagan would put it. The cycle consumption cage is thinking about what we consume, how we consume, and questioning how we account and prosper from that. It's about accounting for, in economics, what the atmosphere and nature do naturally. The cycle consumption cage is when every dollar you spend goes to contributing to environmental degradation. The basic theory is you've been socialized into seeing mass environmental damage as normal. You're ignorant about how environmental degradation is tied to the entire fundamental premise of our economic model. You are marketed to since you're a child, so you don't even see the natural environment. For the average person, they aren't informed of the environmental costs of their purchasing decisions. Seeing our way out of the socialized, media-driven environment to realizing all of its resources are based off natural systems that are not accounted for and in trouble is to see the cycle consumption cage. As you can see by watching the story of stuff, it's not just the logistics, it's the fundamentals. All of what nature does for free is not added to our economic doctrine, and it is having an effect on the overall health of the Earth through global warming. The Earth is finite, but we have a model of infinite expansion and waste. The result is a record amount of carbon in the atmosphere. We don't pay the true cost of business to the environment. We just write it off in the books. For the economy to account for the problem, there needs to be a carbon tax. Otherwise, it's a negative externality that is written off in the books on paper, but not in the real world. Understanding we have to account for what nature does naturally for economics to be sustainable is to see the cycle consumption cage. Knowing sustainability. Humans are having such a large impact on the Earth, we are now in the Anthropocene, otherwise known as the Age of Humans. Humans have been irresponsible using large amounts of resources without paying the true costs, the environmental costs. Now there are devastating effects on global warming with a record amount of carbon in the atmosphere. According to the World Wildlife Fund, the solution is to make sure everything we can consume forever. This is a daunting challenge given that the energy, agriculture, and transportation sectors are largely dependent on non-renewable carbon-based fuels. The biggest contributors to global warming are agriculture, transportation, power stations, and industry. In order to avoid the cycle consumption cage, the answer is to make people pay for their pollution with the carbon tax. That way the pollution is accounted for and humans pay the true cost for polluting the atmosphere. You can either pay the real cost to make the environment sustainable, or you'll pay for it with environmental devastation like flooding in Florida or wildfires in California and Australia. To put it simply, it would be easier to issue some sort of tax to pay for the transition to sustainability to make it more expedient and efficient. The following are 3 main ways we are going to save the planet. Phase out fossil fuels and replace it with renewables. Concentrate on efficient, carbon-sequestering farming while reducing the consumption of meat, and manage the oceans with no fishing zones. We already have all the solutions we need. I am merely focusing on the fundamentals. This is a larger subject than can be encapsulated here. All the solutions for sustainability are present. They only need to be understood and implemented. What can you do to make a lasting change towards achieving sustainability? The number one thing you can do to help the environment is to become a vegetarian. Vegetables, especially locally grown, have a low carbon footprint. People should be using their buying power strategically to support sustainable businesses. If you don't know about the environmental catastrophes surrounding global warming and what caused them, you can't properly vote with your money and steer the economy with your purchasing power. An individual's buying power should be used as a strategic vote supporting sustainable businesses. The solution is market education. People need to be informed to make better purchasing decisions. Now that you know the incremental changes that you can make, You can make a large impact by voting for political representation and bills that would rein in sustainable legislation. Knowing eugenics. In order to become closer and understand our environment, home, and conscious planet, we have to focus on the two subjects of sustainability and eugenics. We have to have the longevity in life to breed ourselves into a better species. Preserving nature and the atmosphere, blue, is why understanding and adhering to the principles of sustainability is so important. Our security through sustainability will give us the longevity to mold our eugenics to a better understanding of celestial consciousness. So what does eugenics of the future look like? It's a focus on women and home life. Human eugenics should really focus on women if we want to produce good, strong, diverse, intelligent offspring. Eugenics goals include women's rights, empowerment, and education. These need to be seen as fundamental for creating healthy offspring. These give any mother the ability to raise children, be productive citizens, and follow their dreams. Women raise children and pass on their knowledge, attitude, and manner to children, so it's important they are educated and cared for. Women should be considered more of a religion where women are worshipped for their life-giving ability and it is honored with a tradition of care. Societies around the world should give more serious consideration to designer babies to especially eliminate disease. Women choose the best mates for themselves naturally. One of the purposes of supporting women is to nurture better breeding selection by giving them the option to say no until ready. If we are to breed to be smarter, we need to control fertility, which means no accidental pregnancies. Reproductive health is healthcare, period, and should be considered a human right. The access to reproductive control centers, like Planned Parenthood, should be a cultural encouragement representing women's empowerment. I did a term paper called Athenian Education During the Classical Period in college, which I received an A on. I came to the conclusion that Greece dawned upon a golden age because they focused on the individual, making them the best they could in order for the society to thrive. That's what societies need to do today, to focus on the individual. We do that by making sure they have a good home life and have access to public services like schools and healthcare that allow the individual to thrive. Any society serious about its survival and ability to produce great works and feats of art and science needs to focus on the health and well-being of its citizens. This is why it's important for states around the world to support healthcare, housing, and childcare. Having a support structure nurtures and enables the mind to think of greater things and take on bigger challenges. The whole point is to grant stability to citizens so they may have the ability to think and challenge themselves to a greater level. One way humans need to evolve is to understand, study, and adhere to the nature and laws of our physical environment. What is lacking today is people's understanding of their effect on the physical world. One way we can get exponentially smarter humans is to breed individuals that understand higher dimensions, because that is the highest level of understanding of the physical world. We live in a 3D world, front to back, side to side, up and down. Some consider time to be the fourth dimension. Either way, it is hard for most people to conceptualize what a fifth dimensional being would even look like. Breeding humans to understand and conceptualize those higher dimensions will evolve us cognitively. That kind of thinking will also help create a philosophy and a vision of the physical world that will help humanity. For example, if people understood the science of the physical world, the public would be more concerned with global warming. The point is for women's policies to have a lasting effect on societies and economies around the world. It's understood by global economists like Jeffrey Sachs that if women receive rights, then economic prosperity follows. As gender equality grows, poverty goes down. When women get more money, they spend more money on the family. Part 4 of 108, The Story of Discovering Earth's Consciousness, by Eric Leo. Read by Eric Leo. Conclusion. Understanding how I came to the conclusion that the planets and stars were alive led me to tell my personal story. My personal story told of my experience with God, how it felt, and how the connection I feel with Gaia is possible. I explained how the atmosphere is alive, and I call him Blue. I described the evolution of ETM throughout the book, but explain what I believe is Gaia's environmental tapestry manifestation. I then discuss what the psycho-consumption cage is and why it is the fundamental environmental problem. Part 3 proceeds with the second half of knowing, sustainability, and eugenics, and why they are so important to focus on. Following knowing will eventually breed and educate our way into being able to understand God while maintaining life on Earth through our atmosphere. Here in Part 4, I will speculate about Gaia and 108. By reading this book, you now understand me better than most people. I feel like my ideas expand upon heliocentrism and merge science and religion. I feel as if I have an understanding of something important and influential, and I'm on the brink of its burgeoning. I am advocating science and philosophy by suggesting what God is, the planet and stars, and how to study her through magnetism. This book resolves the age-old conflict between science and religion about God, namely, that there is one. 108. To understand this section better, watch The Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now we're here, to understanding that the planets and stars are in a world all their own. They have huge lifespans. They work on the cosmic timeline. What is it like to see the world through their perspective? Questions abound. There is no sound in space, so how do they communicate? Planets don't have a mouth, so how do they talk? Is it different how they talk to each other compared to how they talk to humans? How would the planet talk to other animals? Would they communicate at all? I've done some thinking about this. Planets and stars probably think in parallel like multiprocessor computers. There is no air for ears and they have no ears, so communications are probably through the same waves as your thoughts. I say this because that's how Gaia talks to me. When people say they talk to God, it's in the same mental space as your thoughts. It was clear to me, throughout my experience, Gaia can speak to your subconscious. She doesn't have to talk to you to affect you. She can just stimulate your subconscious mind. In this way, Gaia talks to everybody. In any real terms, she silently listens to, helps, and rules the minds of the living. I also think Gaia makes avatars of gods where she is the one with the real power, acting as Thor, Horus, Mithra, or Jesus, for example. Those traditional gods are her head games designed to manipulate the masses. She uses what is tantamount to scare tactics, example hell, and ethereal rewards, example heaven, to make you behave. I think of it like a beehive. The human bees have to live. So how does Gaia interact with the infestation that's on her skin? What does this all mean? I hear a lot about how the universe is just random chance, but the answer lies in 108. The sun's diameter is 108 times the Earth's. From the sun to the Earth is 108 times the sun's diameter, and from the Earth to the moon is 108 times the moon's diameter. This 108 ratio creates the Goldilocks zone for Earth that are the right conditions to create blue. If the Earth and the sun are conscious, it's more likely that the Goldilocks zone ratio of 108 that is essential for liquid water and the atmosphere was purposely created rather than happenstance. In a way, in and by our galaxy, we could have been birthed by the cosmos by a collection of conscious stars and planets rather than the probability of pure chance. This is where we come to how 108 is like a religion. Physics is the Bible, and the planets and stars are the gods. The belief is that conscious celestial beings align to Earth's place in the universe rather than it being random chance. They created life and our existence by conjuring the right conditions for life through their cooperation rather than random alignment. 108 is the ratio needed to maintain an atmosphere, and that's no mistake. Gaia is a shepherd that helped tend to our evolution rather than a dead rock that we survive on. If and when a Dr. Persinger protege creates a box that can tune into the magnetism of the Earth to communicate with the planet, ask her if her 108 ratio was an accident or intentional. I bet she'll tell you 108 was intentional. Afterword, I hope you have enjoyed this book and found the information useful. For future books and other writings, or to find my blog, music, social media presence, and sign up for the email list, visit ericleo.org. I hope this information has changed your life in some way. Thank you for reading.
This has been 108, the story of discovering Earth's consciousness. Written and narrated by Eric Leo.